Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. In this video, I'm going to be going over the major obstacle to making this car roar legal. If you race RC in the United States or any country that falls under ROAR's jurisdiction for race organization, you should know that to race, I think it's any cars, but off-road cars specifically, have to have a hard pack. The stock packs that come with these are just a cheap little soft pack. These things can get punctured in a crash and they can cause a fire. They can catastrophically overload and explode. I've got a video on Lipos safety. I'll put a link down in the description. It is something that you really have to watch out for. I've always been very careful with batteries. I have one of these little bags for each battery. I usually just write the milliamp hour, the number of cells, and brand name if relevant. Helps me identify what's in what bags. And then I usually carry them in another larger fireproof bag. It's just cheap insurance. Literally, insurance is important when it comes to this kind of thing. If you watch the video, you'll see a lipo explode. It'll go into thermal overload, and the chemical reaction is quite spectacular. As someone who lives not too far away from me found out last summer, $1.2 million in damage, pretty much burnt the home down. Big McMansion, and someone was charging their RC car in the garage. So you wouldn't think, high fire hazard area. It's not like it's in someone's bedroom or something. It took out the house. No one was home at the time. They had left the car charging. Big no-no. And anyway, I go over, why they explode or catch fire, how to avoid it, how to maintain your battery so that kind of thing doesn't happen. And it's a good watch. It's not very long. Anyway, to make these legal, as I mentioned, you have to have a hard pack. So from the images that I saw on this car before they were released, when they were in pre-order starting back in January, it looked like there was going to be enough room here for a Shorty pack, and in fact there is. I was very happy when it arrived to see that I could fit a battery in here with a couple of millimeters of space to left to spare. Now there is a issue that it's not a flat surface here, so I went ahead and 3D printed some items. I wanted to be able to compensate for that height, and so I made this little L-shaped piece that I'm just going to two-sided tape down. When I designed it, I made an allowance for the some thin two-sided tape, so I can make these plans available. The G-code for people who want to go ahead and print a set of these. If you need a set, if you have this car, feel free to contact me. You can leave me a comment. Also, in the About section on my channel's homepage, you'll find an email address. So I'm just going to cut a few strips of this. I'm not going to sheet the whole thing, just like, one at either end and one in the middle, just enough to keep it from falling off. And then I made these. Now, again, we have this height issue, so the foot on one side is longer than the other. There's a rear and a front one. So the rear one is going to go there. The front one is going to go here. We also have a clearance issue of the black case here. So I designed it to be short enough so that a shallow button head screw is going to fit underneath that fitting. So basically you just drill out these holes, this one to 3 millimeter, these two holes enlarge them to 2.5. You don't have to, it just makes it easier to thread these in. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing this. Also, get yourself a battery strap. I recommend getting the type that have a silicone surface. It helps hang on to the battery, keeps the battery from moving around unnecessarily. Also, I have spaced these pretty far apart, so there is a little room to move the battery forward or back, or if you have a Shorty pack that's a little longer, pretty much any Shorty pack should fit in here just fine. So these go together just like this. I've made these little caps so that the strap is going to not have to, you know, you're not gonna have to fiddle around trying to get it. It's going to stay in position, helps orient the battery. Let me just loosen these up. And as you can see, I have rounded these two edges here where the strap comes around, so there aren't sharp edges to wear out the strap. So let's go ahead first and anchor this one in place. Just sizing things up here so I can put on that cap. That will work fine. I may need to find one that's a little longer, the strap that is, but we'll see. It's going to work just fine for right now. I've also got some hard packs that are shorter in height. The little end caps here don't really do much other than to keep the strap from flopping around and being hard to get when you need it. So there we go. You can see up close. And having a strap that is, you know, another 20 millimeters or so in length would be great. I'll have to look around, see if I may have one or order one. So now I'm going to go ahead and tape down that little piece here that it serves two purposes. One is to kind of level out the battery pack, keep it from being angled over. And if it angles over too far, it's going to get close to the drive shaft and these two pieces here. And that's also why it's L-shaped, is to provide a little bit of space, like a spacer, to move the battery away from the central drive shaft. I'm just going to use two pieces of this. See, one of the problems with 3D printed plastic is it doesn't stick well, unfortunately. I may actually need to use some CA. Yeah. I even sanded this and wiped it with some motor spray to try to make it stick better. Yeah, it just doesn't want to grab. Okay, let me get a little bit of CA. Well, that will not come off. Okay, I'm going to let that dry just to make sure that it doesn't glue itself to the car. But this is actually a great way to reinforce 3D prints. If you've got a 3D print that's you're trying to make sure it's stronger, you don't want it to split apart. A little bit of CA along edges and corners and things like that can reinforce it really nicely. There we go. So that levels out the battery. Oh, and this is just something I threw together. I didn't want to cut the stock receiver wires because I have ordered a full electronics package for this, since I kind of want to compare this against a real all-wheel drive kit, a race kit, like the Associated RC10 B74.1, which I just got in the mail the other day and I'm going to be building up. I got a 6.5 turn motor, a decent one. It's a Tekin Gen 4 modified, a Hobby Wing Elite speed control, and a Rude Dog servo. I didn't go overboard on servo price. I wanted to try to keep this cost down. My goal for this project here is to kind of show you guys, you know, can you take an inexpensive car like this, a $150 car, and modify it in a way that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, but will make it legal to get to the track. And it's not going to be competitive, but you know, hopefully you're not getting lapped a half dozen times. And I think that can be done. The main obstacles right now is weight and this big gear. The electronics ran about $200 for the ESC. You could certainly cut that down. I wanted to get a decent ESC with all the features, because that electronics package I may move to another car at some point. And that's the main reason I didn't want to cut this, is because I want to be able to return this car to the stock power setup if I want to sell it at some point or pass it on to a friend, whatever, and then take that the race motor and put it in another car. In any event, it was about $68 or $78, $68 for the servo, 200 and 110 for the motor. So less than $400. Now, if you add that to the cost of the car, you're still about $20 under the cost of just the kit for the Associated. Or if you wanted to buy, let's say, one of the best all-wheel drive cars out there, the X-Ray, that would be another 100 on top of that, so another 120, and you don't even have wheels and tires yet. All you've got is a chassis, a roller without the wheels, no electronics. So this isn't a bad way to go if it can be made to run half decently. I have ordered a set of associated front and rear wheels, 2.2 inch. I have good name brand tires with the compound I want. I went with the S3 compound, which is soft compound, 70 to 90 degrees plus temperature since we're heading into summer. I didn't want to go with a purely clay tire, which is their MC, the nomenclature for their clay tires is MC. And I'm probably going to be running outdoors a little bit just on dirt, so I went with the S3s, which is the soft dirt tire, because these are not a good tire. Everyone says that, you know, it's a nice soft tire. These feel like plastic to me. They don't feel anything like a real rubber compound race tire. You know, hey, opinions, everyone's got one. But from what I've seen, they definitely wear fast, and these tires are glued on, so I can't easily get them off. So I won't be reusing these wheels. As soon as those wheels and tires come in, I'm going to glue them up and swap these out, hopefully before I've worn these down to nothing. And again, I'll just keep these in case I let them go with the car. One of the things I want to do right off the bat is adjust this. If you can see, when the servo is standing straight up and down, the steering is off to one side, so I need to adjust that turnbuckle first. Also, if you look at this, it's at a downward angle. That means that left is going to be different than right. So what I'm probably going to do is get, I think I've already got them, a longer ball stud, replace this ball stud with a longer one, and put at least 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters of spacers under there to bring this up to closer to a horizontal angle. Well, I might as well get busy on this. Got a few ball studs in there, but not a long one. Still going to be down a bit. Oh yeah. Hey. That's going to be hard to get to, but I just had a phenomenal idea. Okay, check it out. This is not something that you take off very often. I was thinking about using one of these. I have a pair of these. These are expensive. These are titanium turnbuckles, and they're very long. These are something you would use like out here where you wanted to put several spacers underneath it to really change the angle of your camber link. I could use this up here, but like I said, I only have the pair of them, and I'd rather not break up the pair. I'd rather use the pair for something more productive. This would definitely do the job, but this is plastic. This is going to strip out eventually. Now, let me just confirm the size on this. Excellent. It is the right size. This is a bolt down ball stud. In other words, a screw comes from below. Now I'll need to take this arm off, and I'm fine with that. It'll just take a few minutes to do the disassembly. But what I can do is I can run a titanium screw up from below, and that way I can put as many spacers as I want to, depending on the length of the screw, and then bolt this down with a little bit of Loctite, and that way this will be I won't have to worry that this could get torn out. It would actually have to break the arm here, and there is a servo saver built in here, so that will make sure that this point never fails. So I'm gonna do that. I may also see if I've got a shorter arm here. This is, well, no, I don't want that running into that. Yeah, that's lame. Can't believe they did that. Look at this. The clearance on this, it hits right there. It's not even at full throw, and it's already running into the one of the steering yokes. This servo needs to move backwards at least 3 millimeters, and I can't do that with the existing mount. I would need to make a new one, and I'm not going to do that since I'm going to be getting rid of this, or getting, you know, swapping out this servo. But yeah, that kind of stinks. Also, if you, once you get beyond that, you're hitting the servo with this linkage here. This servo should really be back about a 1/2 inch, at least 12 millimeters, so that the ball stud could be on the front side and not contact either this or the servo. That's effed up. Let me just pull this servo here and let's get a look at what's going on there. Maybe I can do a quick CAD drawing of this this mount with the holes in a different location and move the servo, because I'm not going to be doing that swap over in the next 24 hours or anything. I would like to run this a few times with the original electronics just to kind of assess it for you guys. Yeah, see, there's this one little eyelet here. I could shave a bit of that. Also, the servo I'm getting is probably a little shorter than this one. I love these little stickers. Passed, number 10, passed, 08. In other words, someone did a cursory inspection, but they didn't look inside the differential and notice that there was a major part missing. They didn't look at the guy putting the shocks together and notice that he's doing it totally backwards. Okay, the easiest thing to do here is going to be get out the car stand and start taking all this apart. I need to take apart this steering linkage here. Okay, that's not good. What I'm doing is there's a screw below this post and one above, and the post just rotates freely. It doesn't have like a surface that keys into a slot in the chassis or anything. So I'm basically got a screwdriver above and below and unscrewing whichever one is loosest, which turned out to be the bottom one, which is just caked with what looks like some kind of Loctite. Almost look more like dirt and grime, but whatever. I will say one thing, at least they've used hardened hardware. The screws on their 112 cars strip really easily. Yeah, they really put a lot of that stuff on, whatever it was. What I'm going to do now is disconnect the main steering rack from these rod ends so that I can just take it off without popping the links. The more you pop ball links, the more the little plastic cups get stretched out. Eventually they just stay that way. I mean, eventually they become so loose that you'll be driving your car and it'll just pop free. And that'll be the end of a race if you're racing. I love ball caps that have a hole in the top and ball studs that have a hex fitting in the top of them, because then you can do this without doing any damage to anything. So it does appear that there is a slight wrench fitting right here. Flat edge and flat edge, so a small wrench would need to be slipped under there to hold the barrel in place. I was thinking about disassembling this, but everything seems to be nice and tight. I am gonna get these screws out and replace them with hex heads, and then I'll do what I wanted to do for that. This hardware goes in the garbage. I hate Phillips head screws. Not when you've got hex heads. See what size these are. Looks like that's a 6mm, maybe. Might be 6.5, but it's not a 7, that's for sure. It is not a 5.5. Let's see what this is. No, not even close. Out of curiosity, six. Wow, they just gummed this up with Loctite or whatever they're using. I mean, it's just, it's in places it shouldn't be. It's just supposed to be on the thread lock. That's why they call it thread locker. Wow, they've really got that in there. They've got the thread lock in there so thick on everything, I can't take the bearings off. It's actually like pressed in there with it. So anyway, I'm not going to use, I know I mentioned titanium a minute ago, but I'm not going to use titanium on this car until I know it's a worthwhile venture. There. There. That's not going to work. That's not an M3. Or is it? No, that's not. Those are like M2s. But I have bolt-on M3s. That's what came out. So let's see. Okay, may have to use steel. That'll work as long as it's a hex head. That's all I care about right now. Yeah, they were already on the verge of stripping that thing out. I need a pair of those. And 4 more for the servo mount. Okay. So, those go in the garbage with glee. Okay, this faces forward. Very small. I'm going to block type. I'm surprised they didn't bind up the bearing considering how much thread locker they were using. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna use a slightly shorter screw there. They've got so much thread lock down in that hole. It just doesn't need it. Doesn't need to be that long. I'm not going much shorter, just like 2 millimeters shorter. There we go. I wish I had something like a little pipe cleaner or something that I could kind of run in and out through these holes here to clean that barrel. But I'm going to need to get a 6 millimeter wrench on order. I don't have one, but it's definitely going to come in handy. There we go. Nothing changed. The only problem with these is they don't really, well, you know, they do have a hex head at the top, so I've got to get this right up to the edge there. So first thing, I'm going to put a lock nut on here. That's not an M3. Is it? No, I think that's an M2 or 2.5. I'm not going to use a nylon knock nut. I'm going to use a regular nut. And then I will put spacers, and then I will put the ball stud. See, even when I was tightening this in from the bottom, I could tell that this is already a little stripped. Is that plastic or metal? I think I've got a black plastic nut here. Jeez. I'm really firing on all cylinders right now. Yeah, that's why it wasn't tightening. Okay. Okay, so now, as you can see, I have an assembly here that is not going to come out. It's not going to loosen, and it's not going to tear out of the plastic. That is tightly anchored, and it's Loctited in place. So now I can put on a spacer on top of the nut. That should get me the height I was looking for. I need a little bit of Loctite there. I may actually need to come down at this point. No, I think that's going to be good. I can always go, that's a 2.5 aluminum spacer, and I can always go down to a 2 or a 1.5. I don't think I'm going to need to. So now, with the Loctite on there, I can tighten this down. And that is going nowhere. So it's not the weight-saving assembly of all time, but it is strong, and I don't need to worry about it failing, and it should give me a straight line linkage to the servo. Now I'll probably need to go back and switch things around on this when I do the servo swap, but at least it will be more or less straight for now. So let's see about putting this back together. They really gummed that up. That's just too much. Too much thread lock for sure. Okay. Small amount of thread lock. I think I'm just going to have to live with the bad servo position for right now. Too much stuff to deal with. Yeah, just can't do it without... I'd have to take out this screw, cut that knob off completely, and then the best I could do would be to use a single mounting screw location instead of a pair at the rear two of these two screws like that, and then I could flip the ball stud around to the front side. That would be easy to do if this was a short servo, but it's not, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to put everything in right. I'm going to make sure that I set the endpoints on the servo so it... Wait a minute, this is a crappy radio and we don't have endpoint adjustment. Okay, let's just hope it doesn't run into stuff. Wow. See, therein is an example of what you get with a decent radio. Things like endpoint adjustment, where you can tune out things like that, and then you could use proportional and things like that to make sure you're getting enough throw. There we we go. I knew I pulled out enough screws. Okay, now I need to adjust this, and I'm going to go ahead and do that off the car. Let's see. Let's see if we're close. Out the servo straight up and down. Okay, so I made it a little long. Now those bolts are really loose. No, that one's not. There we go. That's pretty close. Go one direction. Bad. Sorry, I was just thinking about my Ackerman settings. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at stock. But that is something I'm going to have to tinker with. Also, bump steer is something that we may need to adjust. I'm not going to go into detail on bump steer or Ackerman at this time, but they are both things that you should learn about and learn to tune for. There, now you can see that the linkage here is much more perpendicular and much more horizontal. That's going to make for more equal left and right steering. So now the car needs to be put on a board and tuned. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.